I wanted to go back to the issue of diversification. I was listening to a conversation that you had with Guy Spear earlier today, where you were talking about throughout the life of an investment manager, people tend to get more concentration in their portfolio as the winners become really big winners. I'm wondering if that philosophy of not constantly trimming the huge winners in your portfolio is limited in any sense. Is it relevant mostly for investment managers? Is it relevant mostly for people who are starting out and throughout the course of their life trying to build wealth through investing? Is there a point at which greater diversification makes sense? And the one thing that really stuck with me was you mentioned that the Walton family still has most of their net worth in Walmart stock. Does that, still make sense if one is a new Walton coming in, not to diversify away from that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The Davis family. So Chris Davis is on the board of Berkshire Hathaway. He replaced Bill Gates, and he's the third generation. So the grandfather Davis was an insurance actuary, and then he basically started investing in insurance companies in the 1930s, and he bought a gazillion insurance companies. And basically, insurance is a difficult business. Even though he knew it well, they were mostly mediocre to useless investments. 2% of his portfolio went into AIG when AIG was a really, really tiny insurance company in Shanghai. And one of the things that grandfather Davis did is good, bad, or ugly, he never sold anything, just kept the entire basket. And that 98% of the basket did nothing. It was all useless. But the 2% became 95% of the pie. And AIG became, huge, you know, north of 100 billion market cap, whatever. And the Davis family became incredibly wealthy. So, like Munger says, you only need to get rich once. And I think that if we are at a point where we don't have, we're not independently wealthy, we haven't made a lot of money, I think the approach of keeping the winners and concentrating, especially when you know the business and understand the business well, is the way to go. Now, if the Walton family decided that, we've built all this wealth, and what if I take half of it and put it into the S&P 500 or something, for example, it's not the worst decision in the world. Pretty okay. That's a good wealth preservation rule. In the end, capitalism is very brutal, and in the end, everything goes to zero. I mean, there are no businesses that survive forever. I think the oldest business on the planet is a 700-year-old hotel in Kyoto, in Japan. And then, you start looking, and there's very few businesses that have been around for 300 or 400 years, and even been around for 150, 200 years. So durability becomes a real issue. So I am of the opinion that, I would like to keep concentrated on good businesses. The big mistake I've made in most of my career is I've sold too soon. I repeatedly sold great businesses too soon. And so, like, for example, this Coke bottler we own in Turkey, which actually does Coke bottling in about a dozen countries, and they also have the number one beer brand in about another dozen countries. I hope I'm smart enough to hold that for a very long time. The airport operator, I hope I hold that for a very long time. And, it's going to become a large portion of the net worth. The warehouse business already is more than 60% of one of the funds I manage. So yeah, I do think that concentration is the only way to really build wealth